The corridors of the base pulsed with unease. Adrian led the way, flanked by Sebastian and Dane, as they wove through a growing tide of soldiers and staff. The air was heavy, stretched tight between disbelief and dread. Boots shuffled, eyes darted. People clung to devices, searching for explanations where none existed. An officer adjusted the strap of his helmet, though he hadn't worn it in hours. His gaze never left the sky, as if waiting for a second rupture. Beside him, a ground technician exhaled hard, the scent of engine grease clinging to his uniform. A lieutenant tapped the side of her visor, again and again, like the static was her only anchor to logic. Someone muttered about scrambling jets, but no one moved. Even the breeze seemed to pause, caught in the tension between orders unspoken and instincts screaming to act. Boots remained rooted, back straight, but fingers twitched, jaws clenched, and more than one hand drifted unconsciously toward a belt, as if seeking comfort in a learned reflex. Some walked with heads bowed, whispering in low, rapid tones, like secrets could anchor them. A few laughed, the sound brittle and misplaced, quickly swallowed by silence. Emotions twisted through the halls like smoke, fear masked as sarcasm, hope disguised as bravado. Most clung to proximity, gathering in tense clusters that flickered between calm and panic. Adrian scanned the corridor, his fingers gripping his phone. "Same orbs, same message," he muttered, word for word. Sebastian barely heard him. His attention swept across the crowd, eyes wide, lips parted, chest rising with each slow breath. He fed on the moment. Every uncertain glance was proof that something monumental had arrived. Dane, silent as ever, moved with mechanical calm. His gaze swept for exits, security posts, blind spots, already playing through the probabilities in his mind. Then the announcement came. All units report to the sports yard immediately. Priority briefing. The message crackled through the intercom. Within seconds, the halls erupted, not with panic, but purpose. The rhythm of military training took over. Boots thundered against concrete. Doors slammed. Gear was abandoned mid-use. They formed rows in the yard, just like every morning, but nothing felt familiar. The general commander stepped onto the raised platform. His uniform looked too tight around the shoulders. His eyes held a weary shine, as if he hadn't slept in days, and his voice was rough but clear. No speech could prepare them for this, but he had to try. "Members of the Global Coalition," he began, his voice amplified across every inch of the yard. "This is not a drill." Silence rippled like an invisible wave through the line of pilots. Someone shifted, boot heels clicking once against concrete. The phenomenon was real, verified across the globe. A scoff came from the rear ranks. "Mass hallucination," a younger voice muttered. A senior officer shot him a glare that said more than words ever could. "These beings, these messages, have been authenticated by every known authority." A communications tech near the front lowered her headset. "No distortion," she whispered to no one in particular. Her hand trembled just once before she caught it against her thigh. "This is beyond our world, beyond politics." A wind stirred through the yard, sharp and cold. "Our planet is one of 3 species chosen to compete for survival. This is not a theory. It is not science fiction. It is war by divine law." Dane exhaled through his nose. Sebastian stood straighter. Adrian blinked hard, as if trying to reset reality. "We are not without advantages," the general continued. "We are the most technologically advanced. The others, one primitive, one unknown, lack our infrastructure, our coordination, our firepower. That doesn't make us invincible. It makes us responsible. They are not weaker, only different. And that difference is what we must understand, outmaneuver, and overcome." He straightened. "There are no countries anymore, no borders, no flags, only Earth, only us." The words rang out like a verdict. "If you are here, you're being considered. Final selection is underway. Those chosen will be notified shortly. Prepare with pride. The world is watching." Silence again. Then, the storm. Orders rang, names echoed, the base roared to life. Sebastian didn't flinch. His breath fogged the air in front of him as a grin stretched across his face. Adrian's hands trembled as another message buzzed his phone. Dane was already moving toward the logistics wing, the wheels of his mind turning faster than ever. Then the names were called, among them Sebastian, Dane, and Adrian. Sebastian closed his eyes, finally. Adrian looked down, his chest tightened. "I didn't sign up for this," he whispered. He wasn't afraid of dying. He was afraid of losing himself in a war he didn't believe in. Dane just nodded, sharply, quietly, already planning. The Chosen had only a few hours to see their families. Despite the government's relentless optimism, broadcasts of guaranteed victory, pre-recorded celebrations, parades already being planned, many people weren't celebrating. For them, it wasn't glory at stake, it was their family. Sebastian's parents tried to hide their fear, but it clung to them like a second skin. They had once brimmed with pride at his enlistment, at every certificate hung on the wall. Now, they would trade them all for one more ordinary evening, one more dinner where the only danger was spilled wine. They didn't say it, but he saw it in their eyes. That quiet regret. If they hadn't pushed him toward aviation, if they hadn't bragged about his medals, maybe he'd still be here. Safe. Sebastian couldn't understand their grief. Not fully. To him, this moment was destiny knocking, the culmination of everything he'd trained for. He pulled them into a hug. His arms were firm, his voice light. "Hey, don't cry. Just start planning the party for when I get back. Big one. Fireworks. Invite the neighbors, even the ones we don't like." His mother laughed, a soft, cracked sound. Her eyes shimmered with held-back tears. His father, the unshakable one, broke first. His shoulders trembled, his grip tightened. Sebastian felt it, the quake of emotion buried beneath decades of discipline. And for a moment, Sebastian's confidence cracked. A lump rose in his throat. "What if this is goodbye?" He hugged them tighter. "I'll make you proud," he said, but this time it wasn't for show. The day bled into night. What had once been a sky of shifting color turned into an endless expanse of black. Unnatural, absolute. The stars vanished. The moon dimmed. A darkness deeper than absence swallowed the horizon. Clouds twisted above like wounded beasts, their forms convulsing into monstrous silhouettes. The silence became oppressive, as if the atmosphere itself had thickened, too dense for sound. Cold crept in. A wind slithered between buildings, whispering across rooftops like the breath of something unseen. Streetlights flickered and died, one by one. Emergency lamps took their place, dim, pulsing, inadequate. Shadows lengthened across faces. Time slowed. People stood motionless in the dark. Faces turned skyward, expressions caught between awe and terror. It felt as though the earth had been abandoned, suspended in the void. Then a voice descended from the heavens. It was not heard. It was felt, vibrating through bone, blood, and breath. Ancient. Immense. "Humans, you have been briefed on the trial of evolution, but you deserve the truth of your origin." People gasped. Some dropped to their knees. Others clung to each other, trembling. "You are not a cosmic accident. Your intelligence was not born of chance. We made you. We accelerated your evolution beyond what nature could sustain. And in that unnatural growth, you became extraordinary." Lightning stitched the sky in absolute silence. "We did the same with 2 other planets, worlds identical to yours. Same mountains, same oceans, same seeds. At 4 billion years, all 3 were indistinguishable. The same storms, the same species, repeating the same cycles, until the emergence of intelligence." The air buzzed, light surged and failed. The sky didn't split, it exhaled. A tremor passed through Sebastian's chest, not from wind or impact, but from something deeper, a resonance. Like his bones were remembering something he'd never learned. You, the humans of Earth, the Kopats of Akka, the Ishtoas of Liber. Sebastian flinched at the sound of his own species named aloud by something that knew no breath, like a voice rising from a lifeless abyss. 3 divergent paths, 3 experiments in sentience. Amid his loved ones, Dane's face remained stoic, a subtle tell only someone who knew him well would catch. His stillness wasn't a lack of emotion, but a shield, his way of protecting those around him from the storm inside. Even now, with existence itself hanging by a fraying certainty, Dane analyzed. His eyes moved, barely perceptible, searching in the silence for a strand of logic he could still hold on to. Adrian, seated among his family, kept his head low, his eyes fixed on the floor as if afraid he might shatter by looking someone in the eye. Tension gathered in his shoulders. His hands trembled faintly on his knees, fingers curling as if to hold on to something that no longer existed. He didn't speak, but every line of his body shouted conflict. The anguish of a moral soul trapped in a war without answers. The burden of needing to protect without understanding what he was protecting them from. You alone broke the pattern. You imagined, created, destroyed. You chose chaos. A pulse of light shimmered across the horizon, reaching every coast and canyon. Now, the universe demands an answer. Which species deserves to remain? The trial is not cruelty. It is necessity. Evolution must prove itself worthy. The most advanced must endure, for the sake of what comes next. The light grew, blinding, unbearable. Buildings, deserts, forests, oceans, all bathed in an unearthly white, and in its center, the chosen vanished, not in death, but in transition. Their bodies shimmered, dissolved into threads of light, and disappeared. They were no longer on Earth. Only the wind remained, and the waiting. The trial of evolution had begun.